All right, welcome to episode whatever number we're on now. I can't even remember. A little bit of a gap there with the holidays and everything going on, but glad to be back. Knocking out another podcast. A lot of stuff going on. Obviously, we had the college football playoff yesterday. Got NFL games today. Week 16. Um, Couple other items of note, but yeah, we'll start off with the college football playoff. Um, Big games yesterday. Michigan lost, which is perfect because I don't know if the college football world could handle them making it to the college football play or the national championship, let alone winning it. Um, what are your takeaways, Jonathan, from this game?
Yeah, I think talent-wise, Michigan, obviously, they lined up better. They're better on paper. Everybody thought they were going to roll over TCU. But as we've said week in and week out, starting away from the bandwagon with TCU and then jumping on it late, TCU is a good football team. And when you make that many mistakes, um, you can't go and fumble the ball on the 1 yard line. You can't keep making the mistakes over and over again and expect to beat a really good TCU team. Give all the credit in the world to TCU, but Michigan lost this game. Don't make There's no doubt about that. Michigan, this was their game to win, and they gave it up. Regardless of the calls, you can make any excuse you want, but you can't fumble the ball on the 1 yard line. You can't give up that many points in a playoff game.
Yeah, and before we started, you said we're talking about Ryan Day and how he did in the Ohio State game. Jim Harbaugh did equally as bad as Ryan Day did good yesterday. Everyone in the world knows that the game plan for playing against Michigan is stop the run and make JJ McCarthy beat you. TCU stopped the run very well. Obviously, they had that first run that just went for like 70 yards, but after that, they stuffed the run. And there was a couple plays where JJ McCarthy beat him with his feet, but like I said, that's what you want them to have to do. You want him to have to scramble to beat you. You want him to have to throw passes to receivers that really, like, in comparison to the other three teams in the college football playoff, Michigan's receivers are not the same as maybe the best receiver in the country at TCU. And then you have obviously the Ohio State receivers, Marvin Harrison Jr. and I'm gonna butcher his name.
Abuka, yeah.
Abuka, yeah. But yeah, they're too talented running the ball. But once you take that away, you have a young quarterback who seems like he's more concerned with getting his snippets on the air, whether it's him standing there staring at TCU, same way he did last year against Georgia. Like, that's just a photo op. Stop doing that shit. And then there's also the press conference thing where he says, we'll be back. And then he just walks out of the press conference. Like, stop worrying about that stuff and start worrying more about the game. He's a young quarterback. He's talented. I'm not going to grill him too hard. But as the coaching staff, you have to know we have to find ways around, like, putting it all on JJ McCarthy. What do you think of the take? I saw this, that Cade McNamara would have won that game for Michigan.
No, I don't believe that. I think JJ McCarthy had a pretty good game. He missed a few passes, but like you said, he made up for it running the ball. He had a really good game. I mean, it's not his fault that you get down in the red zone and you don't convert. I mean, when you're running the ball, I mean, Michigan is a running offense. JJ McCarthy, he's talented. He's cocky. I hate him, but I don't think that putting other quarterback in there would have made a difference. I think JJ McCarthy is the better option going forward. Plus, we'll see next year because he's going to Wisconsin, isn't he?
McNamara?
Yeah.
He's going to Iowa.
Is it Iowa? Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so, him and one of their one of their better tight ends is going there with them too. I don't know. I mean, speaking of Iowa, the other Big Ten teams other than Michigan, Ohio State, they're undefeated in bowl games right now.
Yeah.
Iowa manhandled Kentucky. Granted, they only scored 21 points, but they only need to score 21 points because that linebacker they have is just a beast.
Well, they had 2 pick sixes too, so I mean they only scored 7 points on offense.
Yeah, that's all I expect out of them. I don't even know if I expect that much out of them. Other takeaways from this game, Max Duggan is just he's gonna do something in the league. He reminds me a lot of like a Josh Allen type of quarterback. Um, Somewhat mobile, but good at decision making. And obviously, when you have the receiver that he does, that pass where it's just a check down, dumps it off to the receiver in the backfield. He does a stutter step and then takes it like 80 yards. That's unreal. Granted, that's a breakdown in the defensive coverage, but to have that burner speed at that size is just insane. I think he's going to be something special as well.
Yeah, for sure. Who knows next week too? I mean, we always count TCU out, but I don't know. This isn't the same Georgia team that won a national championship last year. We saw that. I mean, giving up 41 points to Ohio State, no one thought that was even possible. But
Mm-hmm.
TCU's got a shot. It's gonna be interesting.
Yeah, and good for them because I'll be honest, when I saw Gary Patterson was leaving TCU, um, I didn't know what to expect because he has been TCU football for the last 20 plus years over there. Before he got there, I don't even know if they were in the Mountain West, and they moved to the Mountain West, and then eventually made it to the Big 12. Made it to the college football playoff. Obviously, they're in the championship game now, but won big bowl games in the past. And they show that they're as good in the Big 12 as anyone else. And once, obviously, Texas and Oklahoma leave, they will be the class of the Big 12 with potentially Oklahoma State and Baylor. So, yeah, I mean, good for those guys, especially good for them because that ends Michigan's run. And people don't understand the hatred that fan bases have for Michigan. It's not just Ohio State and Michigan State fans. It's other schools in the Big Ten too, because they're just so pompous and it's infuriating. Ohio State, people that don't like them because they're very good and because the fans might be a little crazy at times. And for other schools in the Big Ten, there might be reasons why you dislike them, but there's never going to be a rallying call around Michigan by any other schools in the Big Ten or any other fan bases because of the way they act, their arrogance.
Well, I mean, that goes back to their early national championships and them saying that they have two before 1920 or something crazy, early 1900 championships. I mean, you can't sit there and be a fan base and have success and then don't win championships, and then go and say, well, we still lead in championships because we won early 1900 championships back before BCS, before any bowl games, before everything. So I don't know. It's infuriating that Michigan sits there and they say they're back. They beat Ohio State 2 years in a row. Good for them. They had good seasons, but the goal at Ohio State and the goal at Michigan is to win national championships. You beat Michigan or you beat Ohio State and you win a national championship. If you can't win the national championship, I don't know. They're not back. When's the last time they won a championship? Was it 98?
97, yeah. And that was a shared championship, the only championship that they won since World War II.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, you can knock states titles that they won in the 50s and 60s too, but those were shared, some of them, I think, with Notre Dame. But the Michigan thing, like you were saying, they claimed national titles and victories over one of the early national titles. They were playing local high schools. They were playing some of the D3 teams I played when I played football in college. And they played 4 games and claimed a national title when they were teaching other schools how to play the game. Like, what are we doing? Then people use that now as reference for why they're great. I don't want to hear that stuff. That doesn't discredit some of the players they have. There's guys that played for Michigan that I don't entirely dislike. I would say, like, looking at basketball, like a Trey Burke, I didn't have any issues with him because he just was a good ass player that kept his head down and did his job. Compared now to that Dickinson clown that they have that won't shut up, and they're terrible, losing to MAC schools. And on the football side of things, Cade McNamara, never had a problem with him because he was just a quality quarterback that did his job. Now you got a kid in there that yet again won't shut up. Their coach won't shut up. Just that's why people hate that program. And Um, why I would say a majority of people are glad that they lost because no one wants to see them win anything because we would never hear the end of it.
Yeah, exactly. Despite Ohio State losing, I think we both talked about this yesterday. I mean, it was a good day. You don't have to watch Michigan go and potentially win a national championship, even though I think they would have got stomped by Georgia. But it's not even possible anymore. We don't have to go and hear them for a whole year talk about how great Michigan is, and yeah, on to the next one, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of the next one, we got OSU and Georgia. I'll let you lead this one off. Being as you're the resident Ohio State guy, so what are your takeaways from that one?
Yeah, the instant classic, man. That was a hell of a game. Ryan Day, I know we talked before, the coaching staff, they didn't coach well when they played Michigan. Yesterday was different. I mean, that was a hell of a job by Ryan Day, by CJ Stroud. Um, Honestly, I think if Marvin Harris doesn't have concussion or whatever, or in concussion protocol, I think we have a better shot of going down and get even closer for that field goal. But it's just a hell of a game, man. You go down and you lose Stover in the first half. You go and you lose Marvin Harris. You already have Henderson out. Williams only played like a couple plays, I think. I don't know what was going on with him. So you
Well,
have
he
Hayden.
had a foot issue, didn't he? He was injured.
So he had the flu going into the week. He only practiced one day, and then his ankles were all taped up, and he couldn't get like a grip on the field. So they went and they cut off all the tape. They like in game trying to get him going. Then I didn't hear anything else about him. So I'm guessing the injury or he just couldn't go. But it was remarkable, man. You got Hayden, who's a freshman. You have was that Williams or not Williams? Xavier. It might be Xavier Williams.
Mhm.
I think he's a converted wide receiver. You're so short in running back at Ohio State, and then your tight end goes out. Then your leading wide receiver Marvin Harrison goes out. Dude, we're down to third, fourth, fifth string, and they're still performing the way they did. I mean, give it up to CJ Stroud for all those running plays. He didn't run hardly at all his entire college career. I don't know how many yards he ended up with, but without him running, we don't even have that chance going into that last field goal. So honestly, I mean, most respect to Ohio State for that game. Not upset at all. Georgia's a very good football team. There's things we need to work on. The defense, Jim Knowles, he did a great job this year. But I mean, if you can't hold teams under 40 points in the two biggest games of the year, something's wrong. He's got to work on it. He's got to be better next year, or else he might not be there in year 3. So we'll see. But it was a hell of a game by both teams, and a completely different script when you're talking about Michigan Ohio State comparisons.
Yeah, for sure. And that Jim Knowles, I don't know if you saw this when Herb Street was talking about the two linebackers that were coming up the middle and hitting those gaps. That's just, I don't know if it's a lack of an adjustment or if it's just one of those things where you let the big plays go occasionally to make other big plays on defense. But that left no line of defense for any broken tackles because we've seen that against Michigan too, where once they beat that initial line of scrimmage, there's no one and they're just gone. So I think what I would assume he's doing is, like I said, you saw Ohio State a couple of times have huge sacks, huge plays in the backfield. That was probably credit to those same type of plays where the linebackers are shooting those gaps, but also then you're susceptible to the long play. In this game, I don't think that was the difference maker as much as those little nuances of the game or whatnot. In Michigan, it was a difference maker, and in every other game they played, the teams weren't good enough to make a big deal of it anyway. I think there was a couple games where Ohio State was close at the half, probably similarly because of those big plays, but then they just knew talent-wise they'd be able to take over those games in the second half. In terms of Georgia, Stetson Bennett gets no credit. Sometimes he deserves no credit. But I will say for him to have had the walk-on experience, then go to a JUCO, then come back and be the quarterback, win a national title, and then do what he did yesterday. Good for that kid. I think he looks like one of those guys that's just out there having a good time, trying to be competitive and win. And like I said, there's people that discredit him. Obviously, he went to the Heisman ceremony. People were upset about that, saying he didn't deserve to go. He's just there because of the talent around him. That might be the case, but you still have to be competent as a quarterback to win. You can't just be out there slinging it around and be like, oh, I got a 5-star tight end and a 5-star receiver. So let's just air it out down there because Ohio State and a lot of the guys they play in the SEC, they have 5-star DBs out there too. So um, good for him. In terms of who I have for the title game, I would pick Georgia, and I don't know that I have a preference of who I want to see. I guess maybe Max Duggan would be pretty cool to see him do it in TCU, just based on the fact that they have been underdogs all season pretty much. But what's your take on that one?
Yeah, I mean, first thoughts, I think Georgia's a great football team. I think they should win. On paper, they should win. I think they will win. But, I mean, how many times have we counted TCU out? I mean, literally every game in this podcast, we have said that TCU is this the week they lose. So, I mean, you can't count them out. They got a good quarterback. They got a good coaching staff. Their defense is solid. And we saw that Georgia – they're a little shaky on defense. I mean, you give up 41 points. Go back to LSU. They gave up like 500 total yards of offense or something crazy. So, I don't know. I'm going with Georgia, but I wouldn't be surprised if TCU wins.
Yeah, and if they start the way they did against Michigan and then sustain it, that was my worry, especially at the start of the second half, was are they going to be able to maintain the momentum and the discipline that they had throughout the first half? At times, it looked like they were going to lose it. I think specifically back to that fumble they had where Michigan just scored. It's a 1-score game. Or if it's a 2-score, it's like 11 points or something. And they fumble the ball at their own like 30-yard line, and Michigan gets it back. That felt at the time like that could have been, this is the turning point. I just invested all this time and effort into being hopeful that Michigan's going to lose and they're going to end up finding a way to win this damn game. But it didn't happen. So good for them, like I said. And there's no reason we should have thought anything different based on what they did all year in the Big 12. Winning close games, winning games that maybe they shouldn't win. But now it's not the case that they shouldn't have won them. It's that they were just more disciplined and maybe a little bit more versed in how to win close games.
Yeah. They have a scrappy team, too. I mean, anytime you have a scrappy team with talent and a good game plan, you got a chance. And we saw all year that that's who they are. That's why I think they really do have a chance next week.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll get into hopefully a podcast either before or right after the national championship. We'll go over all that stuff about TCU and Georgia as well. But good season for Ohio State. It's a good season for Michigan as well. Just happier to see them lose. Do you have anything else before we hit up the NFL?
Not necessarily college football specific, but if you're in Ohio, today's the first day that sports betting is legal. So happy first of the year. And there's a bunch of all those apps out there. You get free bets right now since it is new. So definitely, if you're into sports betting, take advantage of the free weekend and free bets, and hopefully you win some parlays.
Yeah, and make sure you guys all read the fine print on those too. Sometimes there's promo codes you got to add in there before you do your first bet, and then once you do your first bet, you can't do it anymore. So make sure you before you either add money in or make your bet or whatever, make sure you know what the promo is, because every single one of those books has something. But it might be, if your first bet loses, you're credited a certain amount or whatever. Just make sure you're reading the fine print on those, because that'll come back to bite you occasionally. I know it has for me in the past. So yeah, always make sure you're looking into that stuff. And then moving on to the NFL, make sure if you're in Ohio, you put all your life savings on the Browns to beat the Commanders, because I need that. As a Lions fan, we need the Commanders to lose. But then again, I didn't tell you to do that responsibly. Lions at Bears first game, or Lions at home against the Bears first game, 1:00. After the debacle last week, Lions are still in it because every other team lost. But what that meant is that they cut a week off of their ability to sneak in. And honestly, it might not be sneaking in. It might be them shooting themselves in the foot. But this is a must win against the Bears at home, obviously. They got to come out. The Bears aren't going to roll over. They're not smart enough to know that if they keep losing, they'll get better draft picks. They don't care about that. I'm taking the Lions. You said the spread was 5.5.
I got it at 5.5. I think it's 4.5 now. But yeah, I also think the Lions are going to win, but I do like that 5. I'm glad I got 5.5 because I do like that spread. I don't think the Bears are going to roll over. Justin Fields is out to prove something. He's had a good year compared to their record. The Bears are obviously not a great football team, but Justin Fields is an elite quarterback, I think. 5.5 points was a steal. And the Lions, I mean, it's always a close game when you're playing in Ford Field against the Lions. And then with so much on the line, I don't know. If you're going to take money line, I probably would go with the Lions, but even 4.5 points, it's a lot of points to give up.
Yeah, and recently, especially this season, the Lions win and lose games relatively close. There are those outliers like the Patriots game, they lost pretty handedly. But last time they played the Bears, they won by 1. Lost to the Bills by 3. Beat the Jets by 3. Lost to the Eagles, the best team in the league, by 3. So anything in the NFL, especially if it's close to a touchdown or above a touchdown, that's a pretty big spread. So yeah, I would be in line with that and assume that the Bears would cover, but the Lions win. Next up, big one for the Patriots and the Dolphins both at Gillette Stadium, 1 p.m. The Dolphins, I believe, are 8-7, and the Pats are 7-8.
Yep.
So this game will be huge for the Pats, basically an elimination game. If not, I think it is an elimination game for them, actually. So what do we have for this one?
I think the Dolphins are a good football team, but Tua's out again in concussion protocol. They've been imploding recently. Like you said, Patriots need to win. Right now, it's a 3-point spread. Patriots are giving up 3, but I like those odds. I would take the Patriots. I don't think the Dolphins have. I mean, without Tua, I don't think they really have a chance. And it's a must-win game for both of them. So I give the advantage to the Patriots.
Yeah, and similar to what people say about Saban in Alabama, I would not bet against Belichick with this kind of stakes on the line. Like you said, Tua being out is huge. Pat's defense can be great at times, can be a little porous at others, but being at Gillette with this big of stakes, I would take the Pats as well there. Let's see if Judon can step up for that defensive line, make a couple of plays. And then what I will say, though, is the Dolphins, when you have the receivers they do with Hill and Waddle, if you get them the ball in space, they can make plays. So that could be a difference maker. But Belichick, I like him in that spot. Panthers Bucks at Raymond James, 1 p.m. This is a very interesting game because the Bucks have the better record. The Panthers have looked like the better team the last couple of weeks. The Bucks have Tom Brady, so obviously, like a light switch, he could turn it on. The Panthers have momentum, and their defense has played exceptionally well against the run. So basically, you're making the Hall of Famer beat you, who hasn't looked like the Hall of Famer of late. What I would say is, with it being at Raymond James and having the capacity to end the Bucs season, I would lean Bucs there. but I'm not betting this one because the Panthers are just too hot for me to not for me to bet against them right now. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I agree with you. I did bet this one. And the mindset going into it was I'm not going to bet against Tom Brady when there's a playoff spot on the line. It's at home. They're giving up 3.5 points. Like you said, I mean, at any week you could just turn it on and be Tom Brady again. I don't know about. I mean, like you said, this is too close. I mean, Carolina's hot, Bucks aren't. But I mean, if you're going to bet against Tom Brady, I always have a rule: you don't bet against Tom Brady. So I took the Bucks. And hopefully, I hit my parlay because that's my 3-leg. It's my last leg in the parlay.
So it went live today. What apps do you have? I know there's a Topico, which is the one that the crew have on their sleeves.
Yeah. So I got Barstool, FanDuel, MGM. I haven't looked at Topeka yet, and there's a few other ones that I'm gonna look at too. But those are the 3 I have so far.
Yeah, try and bank up that cash and then delete any app you don't want after you go through the promos that they have. But there's some outlier ones that aren't bad either. I think for a while there's some people I know were using points bet up here, which is kind of like when you go on the app, it looks a little more Mickey Mouse than some of the other ones. But one thing I will say, the Barstool app, they'll have decent promos and everything, or not promos, like you would basically like fade or follow some people that make their picks or whatever, but they're not going to hand out money.
Yeah.
Whereas MGM, you get free bets pretty regularly. So that's the one I've been using recently. Browns Commanders at FedEx Field, 1 p.m. This is Carson Wentz back in play now, which I don't really have a dislike for Carson Wentz as much as some other people, but I foresee the Browns stepping up in this game, and actually, I think they pull it out. I think it's close, but the Browns are so hard to predict. They have immense talent, but it seems like they don't hit their potential a lot of times. I watched them play live against the Bills when they were at Ford Field, and the Browns looked great for like 2.5 or 3 quarters, and then just imploded and ended up getting waxed pretty good. The talent's there. I want to see the Browns win, but I didn't bet this one personally because I know that if I did, it'd just be based on me wanting the Browns to win more than what I actually think is going to happen.
Yeah. I got this one with Browns +2. I think Watson's a good quarterback. He's a little rusty. He hasn't played for a year. I don't think you get 4 NFC East teams in the playoffs. So with that said, I mean, this is the worst one of all of them, the Commanders. I think the Browns, they have the ability to beat them. I think Watson's getting better each week. I mean, take that with a grain of salt. But, I mean, he is an elite quarterback. The Browns have talent. And I just think the Commanders, they're going to implode on themselves and not make the playoffs.
Yeah, that's the hope. But like I said, the Browns are fully capable of imploding on themselves as well. So we'll see how that one plays out. Jets and Seahawks at Seattle, 4 p.m. What do you got for that one?
So I didn't bet this one, but if I was going to, I would bet the Seahawks. They're getting 2 points. Who's even the quarterback for the Jets? I mean, week in, week out, I know Zach Wilson isn't playing anymore. Or maybe he is. I don't know. But
no, he's not. I think it's Mike White.
Yeah. I mean, they had a great start to the season, but recently, I mean, they have imploded. The Seahawks, same way. I mean, they also had a really good start to the season, but I think there's too many questions in New York. So I have Seattle with this one.
Yeah, Mike White is a starter. I put in Jets quarterback and it immediately went to on Google who's the Jets starting quarterback this week. So, yeah, it'll be Mike White. Honestly, out of the options, he's the most reliable that they've had. Seahawks, beginning of the year, looked like they were going to be the improbable world beaters with
Gino.
Geno Smith and all those players that have now gone to other teams and them being expected to finish last in the division. And they've since fallen off a little bit. I would expect the Jets to win this one in a close one, but I don't know. They both look like middle of the pack teams that really don't deserve to be there, but are finding ways to win games against other bad teams. There's a lot of parity in the NFL right now, and they're some of those teams that have kind of snuck in above some of the other ones where you look at them and you go, how are they there? You could say the same thing about the Lions or the Commanders too.
Yeah.
Another team that's looking to sneak in, excuse me, the Packers versus the Vikings at Lambeau, 4:30. If the Packers win this game and it comes down to the Lions versus the Packers at Lambeau next week, I already know what the outcome's going to be, and it's not going to be enjoyable. Now, granted, the Vikings have only lost 3 games all season. The games they lost to the Lions, lost to the Eagles, I believe, and lost to, I think, the Bills. They did lose. Nope. That was one of the epic games of the year, and I can't even remember which team won. But regardless, they lost to 3 very good teams. They find ways to win games. But Aaron Rodgers getting some guys on the same page as him, playing at Lambeau. It's not necessarily primetime Kirk Cousins, so it's not a concern. It's not like he's under bright lights or whatever, but it is a must-win game. But he's kind of reversed that narrative this year of him being inconsistent and not able to win big games. This one, I just keep bringing up games I didn't bet, and the games I do, I don't even say anything about what my bet was. But I did not bet this one because, yet again, I would be betting the Vikings because I want the Vikings to win, not necessarily because of any other reason. But when I do look at it as impartially as I can, I do think the Vikings win. But I would not be surprised in the slightest if the Packers find a way to get that done.
Yeah, I also did not bet this game. However, I think the Packers are going to win. If you look at the wins that the Vikings have, they're all close games. I think there was like a stat done if like the games went 3 points the other direction, they'd be like 2 and whatever. So they're all close games. The Packers need to win. It's in Lambeau. The Vikings don't necessarily need to win. However, I mean, obviously, they're trying to get a better seed. But yeah, I have the Packers in this one. Aaron Rodgers, I mean, it's been a disappointing season, but like you said, if they can win this one and then go and beat Detroit, which I think if they do win this week, they probably will go on and beat Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm not betting against Aaron Rodgers in this.
No. What I will say, the Vikings do have some motivation, though, like you said, seeding wise, and then also, if you lose this game, you're basically guaranteeing Detroit or Green Bay is in the playoffs, and you don't want to see either of those 2 division opponents again. Not necessarily because they're better than any other team that would be there, but playing a team 3 times in a year is not beneficial for whatever team wants to win. Like, both teams know each other very well. That leads to concerns from play calling standpoint and just matchups individually, scheme wise. From a coaching standpoint, I think that would favor the Packers over the Lions and the Vikings too. Coaching wise, I think the Packers are better suited to adjust and find ways to win games. And then quarterback wise, obviously Rodgers is better than Goff or Cousins. That's not discredit to Goff or Cousins, but they're just not as good as Aaron Rodgers. So, yeah. So if you're the Vikings, you want to eliminate them if you can. Last NFL game we'll focus on at Paycor Stadium. Bengals, Bills, Monday night. I'll let you lead this one off since you're yet again the resident Bengals guy. What are you looking at here?
Yeah, both teams are elite teams. I think pretty much the winner of this has a really good shot at being the number one seed and getting a bye in the playoffs. I mean, you got Josh Allen and Joe Burrow. The Bengals, they started off terrible this season and they haven't lost since week 4. So I don't know. That defense looks good. The offense is looking good. Then you look at the Bills. I mean, they're an elite team. Both teams. I mean, I think they meet each other in the playoffs anyway. Winner goes to the Super Bowl, in my opinion. But yeah, I'm taking the Bengals. A little biased as a pick 'em. I mean, it's at home. Wouldn't bet against Joe Burrow right now, but yeah, it's going to be a really good game. I think it's going to be the game of the year going into the playoffs. I know we have one more week, but this really is going to set up who gets home field advantage.
Yeah, for sure. And the only thing I would say is don't count the Chiefs out of that AFC either. But right now, in terms of like form and how good they're playing, the Bills are not nearly as looking as good as the Bengals are. That doesn't mean they didn't do their job that they needed to do in winning the recent games they've played, but the Bengals looked better doing it than the Bills did. And like you said, last year Bengals almost had the same trajectory that they have now. Start off slow, progressively get better throughout the year, and then at the end of the year, you do not want to see them at all. And then last year was a surprise almost that they made it to the Super Bowl. This year would not be. So maybe they'll get better games from other teams, but it's the NFL. Everyone's trying all the time, so I don't know if that necessarily plays either. For my pick, I'm taking the Bengals at home. That's when I did bet I would take the Bengals at home. Especially getting a point. It's like you said, essentially a pick'em game, but I'll take the point if they're going to hand it to me. So that's what we got for NFL this week. We'll get this posted probably just at kick of those games at 1:00. Quick little Premier League update, not much. Arsenal 7 points clear of Man City at the start of the year. Unreal start of the season. 4 different attacking players score yesterday for Arsenal, which is huge. Transfer window opens up now for the entire month of January. See who makes what moves. Also of note, Newcastle has only lost 1 game the entire year so far. I've never seen. So Chelsea and Man City both had like oligarch owners that came in and just dumped money, and they became good relatively quickly. No one's ever done it as fast as Newcastle has, though. They have a Saudi ownership group now, and they dump money in, and they just instantly became good. So them sitting in third place, you have some big games coming up for them as well. They play Arsenal in a couple of days. So that'll be a huge matchup. But other than that, right now, with the World Cup having just ended, not a whole lot of Premier League news, but just at that, pivotal point of the January transfer window. Arsenal in first, Man City in second, Newcastle in third. Should be an interesting finish to the season.
Yeah, talking real fast about some soccer too. Not necessarily the Premier League, but it was interesting that Ronaldo signed with that Saudi team. There was some real talks that he was going to go to. It was a MLS team. Was it FC Miami? I don't know who it was, but it was an MLS team, which shows you that the MLS is up and coming. I think it's going to be a great year, great future for the MLS. You talk about the Premier League, obviously, but American soccer is gaining momentum. We got some good teams, and forecasting what's going to happen later in the year. I mean, we're going to go see some crew matches, probably have some updates there. But yeah, if you guys really want to get into soccer, it's a great time in the United States to pay attention to what's going on at home. Also get into Premier League, and then obviously like the world stage. That was the best World Cup we've ever seen. So yeah, it's a great time to watch some soccer.
Yeah, and touch on the MLS as well. If it's Inter Miami, there's been talks of Messi going there eventually as well. And And then what the MLS has done well recently, we see it with Martinez at Atlanta FC, and then with the Crew having a couple of these individuals as well. People from the Western Hemisphere staying in the Western Hemisphere instead of going to Europe. So you got guys from Argentina, Venezuela, from Guatemala. It doesn't matter where they're from in Central and South America that decide to go to the MLS. Now, maybe they don't get noticed as quickly as some other guys that end up in the Premier League, but those talented guys being able to play in the MLS, and even if it's just a boost to get them somewhere else, it's good to watch them while we have them with us. So if we turn into the MLS turns into the league where young talent gets recognized and then older guys come, like we have seen with Ibrahimovic and Rooney and other like elite players, I think that's going to be great for the league. If we can get, 5 to 6 of the generational talents that as they are retiring, they come to the MLS, that's huge. And then if we get, each club has 5 to 6 guys that are really talented that are looking to make a name for themselves and move on, then that's great for us as well too. So definitely something that I would look out for.
Yeah, for sure.
Also, expect more college basketball, NHL, NBA with the new year. Like, it's a common theme. Most people don't follow the NBA until after Christmas because before that it's kind of less relevant. Same can be said for some, not as necessarily as much for the NHL, but also college basketball when you get into the league season. But don't want to let them off easy because of the nature of this and just Hunter Dickinson in general. Michigan lost to Central Michigan in basketball. They need to be put on blast for that. They're 7-5 with a preseason or a pre-Big Ten schedule that was just trash. Yet again, just arrogance coming back, biting you in the ass like you deserve. But in general, the Big Ten is going to be pretty awesome to watch this year. Ohio State, Michigan State, Illinois, Indiana, Purdue, Wisconsin's always scrappy. Iowa's decent. There's a lot of talent. Even if you go out east, you got Rutgers and Maryland, who are always solid basketball schools. Penn State's not as bad as they've been in the past. So yeah, Big Ten basketball this year is going to be definitely fun to watch.
Yeah, for sure. Like you said, people that are in Columbus, man, Ohio State has a good football. They got a good basketball team this year. I've watched a few of their games. They got some shooters. Zed Key's a legitimate big man down center. Yeah, and they're good, man. The whole Big Ten is good. I mean, minus Michigan, and they deserve to be put on blast for that. You lose to you talk about let's step aside for a second. You talk about the big brother of Michigan. They're always, I'm the big brother. Let me take care of little brother. Little brother beat the shit out of them. Like, you can't lose to Central Michigan. I don't know how much money they paid them, but to lose and be embarrassed in your home state, you're supposed to be the best school in Michigan. Can't lose to Central Michigan, and they did.
No, yeah, and like I said, with as much crap as they talk, it's always good to give it back. Do you have anything else before we finish off here?
No. We got Ohio State playing today. Actually, they play Northwestern at 7:30. So
Northwestern's scrappy too. So
yeah,
is it in Columbus or is it in Evansville?
no. Yeah, it's in
Oh yeah,
Evansville.
so you're in that. That actually isn't that bad of a arena because they actually show up and it's a basketball arena, so it's not the same. It's not like when you go there to Ryan Field and play in front of 10,000 people and 5,000 of them are Ohio State fans. So, so we'll end with a couple of things that I found on the internet that will be enjoyable for everyone. First off, we got the crying Jordan meme.
Put that back up there because it has me. I'll talk.
We got this one. Different crying Jordan meme. And this one, as we just talked about, Michigan basketball season getting suplexed. So, yeah, rough day for Michigan yesterday, and it's not going to get any better, but that just means it gets better for us. So I will take it. You got anything else before we finish off the show?
Nope. I said just looking forward to MLS soccer. Gonna talk more about college basketball, NBA, NHL. Unfortunately for me, but yeah, it's gonna be a good year. It's good to be back. We did take that couple weeks off for the holidays. I mean, that's the nature of this show. We
Mhm.
both work, we both have families, so yeah, it's gonna be a good year.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of the Blue Jackets, do you see that save that they had on that Goudreau shot? Uh, was it yesterday
It
or the
was
day before?
yesterday. Yeah,
Holy crap, that sucks. Like wide open net, the goalie just sticks his stick out and hits off of there. But yeah, they'll improve over time too. Like we say about a lot of these sports nowadays. There's a lot more parity than there's been in the past. So good and bad. If your team's like there in the playoff hunt, you get frustrated because they can lose to anyone at any time, which sucks. But it's also good when like you want your team to do well and they're like lower in the league, and you know like the Panthers come to town, we can still beat them. If the Lightning come to town, we can still beat them. So that's always good. But yeah, that's all we got today. It's good to be back doing this. We'll try and keep it as consistent as possible with our schedules. Obviously, you have immense obligations in the form of little ones that are
twin
running.
1-year-olds.
Yeah, and same over here. We both have work obligations and stuff, but we'll do as consistently as we can and enjoy doing it. So thanks, man. And we'll get you guys hopefully end of this week, beginning of next, regarding that college football playoff.
Yeah, you have a good one.
You too.